Week 10 of the college football season behind us. No matter how you watched or found a way to watch, the season rolls on. And with that being the case, we got to give you our rankings after this past week of college football, ahead of week 11 of the college football season. Now, the College Football Playoff Committee will give you their first iteration of these rankings on Tuesday night. Their rankings won't look like this, but they should. If you're a college football sicko and you love college football with every fiber of your being, make sure you're subscribed right here. We appreciate you in advance for doing that. So if you're new here, here's how we do these rankings. Best 11 teams in college football, plus your G5 bid. We're trying to account for this whole college football playoff discussion. Without further ado, our G5 bid for this week, it's still Memphis, man. It was USF for the longest time. Memphis snatched the belt. I see no reason for them to not still have the belt after taking Rice out to the woodshed. Memphis, I think if they win out, they will be your G5 rep. And you say, well, JD, but USF and their ranked wins. Memphis beat USF. End of discussion. We move along. At number 11, I got Georgia Tech. Now, yes, they caught a loss to NC State. And to be honest, it felt a little bit like it was sort of a matter of time before Georgia Tech had a flat tire kind of game. I don't think the rest of their run they were on, though, before that game was fake. Like, Haynes King is out here just giving every ounce of himself to this Georgia Tech football team. I think that they're going to be very frisky the rest of the way. I think they're going to have a chance to win the ACC. And as of right now, I know that loss is a bit of a bummer if you're a Tech fan this morning, but I still think they're a number 11 team in college football. Curious to see what the committee says about them, but I don't think that anything we've seen to this point about Georgia Tech is unreliable here the rest of the way. They are who they are, and at the very least, they're going to be a tough out here down the stretch. At number 10, I'm back on them, man. Back on the Red Raiders. Texas Tech, number 10 in our Nothing But Ball rankings this week. Listen, they have one loss. It's a tough loss. It's to Arizona State. That loss doesn't look like it's going to age all that well, depending on how you think the Big 12 is going to shake out here in the month of November. But here's the thing. That one loss was on the road with a backup quarterback. And I love Will Hammond. I am first team all Will Hammond stan. However, with Baron Morton in the game, you haven't lost a game. And so big one this weekend. College game day, going to Lubbock. You'll play BYU. I cannot wait for that one. I think Texas Tech is still the best team in the Big 12. That's what I think. These rankings, I have to go a different direction, but Texas Tech, number 10 this week in our Nothing But Ball rankings. And I think there's very few weaknesses within that football team. Now, I told you, I think Texas Tech is probably the best team in the Big 12, but here's my thing. I can't argue with undefeated. I'd like to. I've tried to, but I keep on picking against BYU, and I keep on being wrong. BYU, number 9 in our Nothing But Ball rankings this week. They were off a bye last week. I don't have anything to say about BYU outside of they're undefeated, and if you think BYU is not the best team in the Big 12, the burden of proof is on you to make that case. Now, the burden of proof will be on Texas Tech this weekend to make that case. We'll break that game down this week on the show. But again, BYU, big goose egg in the loss column. I don't know what you want me to say. Bear Bachmeier's awesome. Jersey number's awesome. BYU unbeaten, number 9 in this week's rankings for your boy. At number 8, I got Notre Dame. JD, you were just talking about BYU being undefeated and how you can't argue with no losses. Why does that logic not apply to Notre Dame? A couple of reasons why. Notre Dame, what we see them doing on the field, the way Jeremiah Love is out here breaking 90-plus yard runs for touchdowns, the way C.J. Carr said, actually, forget hair, I'm going to go bald for this college football playoff run that we're on right now out here in South Bend. I think Notre Dame and the roster they have needs to be accounted for. And I know this is an ugly thing to say, but we're going to say it anyway. They got good losses. They have a good loss, rather, to A&M. And that loss to Miami when they got it, I think maybe we should use some context around that. I think the fact that they got it early on in the year, the first game of the season, Miami came out firing. Miami's still a good roster in their own right. They got that loss on the road to Notre Dame as well. And then A&M's a top 3 team in college football. So at the end of the day here, when we shuffle the deck in the month of November and we deal out playoff berths, you'll see a lot of 2-loss teams. The thing with Notre Dame is, though, they just got their 2 losses early. Now, keep a pulse on Notre Dame when it comes to their playoff aspirations relative to that tiebreaker with Miami. If Miami wins out, a couple of 2-loss teams there between Notre Dame and Miami, and we could have a tiebreaker situation that you'd have to probably give to the Hurricanes. But I think Notre Dame's going to keep on trending the right way as long as they avoid playing tight and they play to their personnel and they play to their talent level. They're going to be a 10-2 team, and they will, I believe, be in the college football playoff. And what I've seen to this point, I know the Boston College game, you like a little bit more definitive nature from them with that win. Still, I don't care. A win's a win, and Notre Dame keeps on winning. You don't apologize for that. So Notre Dame at number 8 in our Nothing But Ball rankings this week. Now, number 7, the Oregon Ducks, kind of the forgotten team across college football. No? On a bye this past week, and since the Indiana game, a lot of us have kind of filed Oregon away in like the back of our mind when we think about college football because they don't have a ton of like marquee games left on the schedule. They're not going to play Ohio State. They don't have like any college game day games you have circled in the future here. They'll play Washington at the end of the year, which will be a really good litmus test, I think, for the Ducks with how they finish the season, how hot they are headed into the college football playoff potentially if they find themselves in that spot. But I just got to say this, hand up. We did our prediction for what we think the College Football Playoff Committee will say about their rankings when they get rolled out here this upcoming Tuesday. I forgot to put Oregon in there. And that, I think, just goes to show the way that we have approached Oregon really since that Indiana loss. Like, we just kind of said, okay, Oregon, yeah, good football team, but, we got to talk about all these teams in front of them, right? And look at Indiana and look at Ohio State. And it's like, well, Oregon still is one of the best rosters in college football. I still happen to believe they quietly have one of the best quarterbacks in college football. They definitely have one of the best, if not the best, offensive coordinator in college football. And they have one of, if not the best, I shouldn't say the best, but the best young head coach in college football in a one Dan Lanning. So Oregon's going to be there at the end is my point. They'll fly under the radar. That's more than fine. Oregon, I fully believe, will be in the college football playoff. I have them at number 7 in this week's rankings. Now, number 6, I got Ole Miss. And I had Ole Miss at 4 last week. And I feel a little bit less strongly about having them that high in these rankings because I think we probably have to give a little bit of love to what Georgia has done when it comes to coming behind in some of these games. But here's my thing. The ranking for Ole Miss to me truly is secondary because I think for Ole Miss, we're going to see them in the college football playoff. That's one part of this. And they're going to have, I think, an advantage when it comes to them dialing up the offensive side of the ball against anyone they play. Like, that's just how I feel about it. And that's kind of oversimplifying it, but like with Trinidad Chambliss, the way he's playing, the way that the offense has just got a number of different skill players to get the football to, there's no one guy that you have just totally circled at the wide receiver position for Ole Miss that's like, man, we got to take this guy away. We win the football game. It's like, it could be Lee, it could be Stribling. Keywan Lacey's a dog running the football. Like, they have so many ways to beat you, and it's so well orchestrated by Trinidad Chambliss with Lane Kiffin. They're going to match up really well, I think, with anyone they play. So have them at 6. If you have them at 4, I support you. In fact, I had them at 4 last week. This top tier of the SEC outside of A&M between Georgia and Bama and Ole Miss is just a tricky way to shuffle it. But I have Ole Miss at 6. I'm going to go ahead and say that the head-to-head over Georgia should count for something, but it's going to be hard to pick against Ole Miss when it comes to college football playoff time. Now, as I alluded to a second ago, I got Georgia ahead of Ole Miss. I got them at 5 this week. I wasn't sure what to do with Georgia last week in these rankings because I've seen them, like I just said, pull away in the second half from teams or find a way to come back in the second half against teams is the better way to say it. And a week ago, I was like, man, I appreciate that from Georgia, but it doesn't sit with me all that well. Like, I don't know if that's a reliable formula. Spoiler alert, I don't know if it's a reliable formula here going forward for Kirby Smart and the Dogs, but in a year where college football feels like it is a closer packed together group of contenders than ever before, and there's not like one team that's just far and away going to be the top dog and everyone else is chasing that team, I might just lean on being the toughest to kill in college football. And I think Kirby Smart and this Georgia team is the toughest to kill. Gunnar Stockton is the epitome of consistent. That defense has got some issues, but at the very least they are timely. Georgia has got all the traits to find a way in the fourth quarter, and I think most teams will be in a fourth quarter fight with the Dogs, and if that's the case, hard to bet against Kirby and the boys. Number 4, I got Bama. I think we got to probably weight that Georgia win for Alabama a little bit more heavily the more that Georgia wins. And I'm not a big, way to win differently in retrospect guy. I think we should side-eye it and account for it, but not put too much stock into it. But Alabama found a way to win in the second half against a team in Georgia that all they do is win games in the second half. Ty Simpson and the level he's operating at right now, I feel as confident in him as any player in college football to go out and take a game for their team. Now, the other part about this for Alabama, they had that run where they had 4 ranked wins in a row, and that was a big thing for momentum and how much juice they had, and we're reviewing Alabama differently. But then they played South Carolina a week ago and gets to the fourth quarter, and it's a game on the road, and it's crunch time, and they haven't really had their fastball all day. And what happens? Alabama's best players Find a way to make the plays to win that game. The guys that you look to in the fourth quarter, you're passing the football, they're the ones that make the plays, metaphorically speaking. You get Tim Keenan with the big fumble recovery, Deontay Lawson on the strip, you got Jermaine Bernard getting in the end zone, you got Ty Simpson throwing the ball around the yard. Like, all those things came together to where I'm like, okay, I think this Alabama team has got some traits to them as well. That paired with a quarterback that I trust as much as anyone else in college football right now, I'm rolling with Alabama, got them at number 4 in this week's rankings. At number 3, I got Indiana. I want to preface this really quick. This top 3, any way you slice it, I don't think you're wrong if you have any of them at number 1. Like, if you got Indiana number 1 in your rankings, more power to you. Spoiler alert, I think the College Football Playoff Committee, based on resume, will have Indiana number 1 in their rankings on Tuesday night. Indiana is just blowing teams out. There's not a whole lot more to break down there. They got a 10-point win over Oregon at their place. They got a 50-point win over Illinois. They got a win over Iowa. That was their closest game they played. It was a 5-point game. The bottom line is here, I think when you look at just the way this team is built, there's nothing, I keep saying this, but there's nothing tricky about Indiana. They're going to be in a spot every single week where they're going to find their matchup, whether it's on the line of scrimmage, whether it's on the perimeter. Fernando Mendoza's a freaking robot, and they've been a machine offensively to go along with that metaphor. Indiana, if you got them number 1, more power to you. There's not a lot to really take away from them being number 1. It comes down to the eye test here. It comes down to how you feel about the roster, and Indiana, I think, is absolutely a top 3 team in college football. Now, A&M, I think, is the number 2 team in college football. And this goes back to, again, why I have A&M ahead of Indiana and why I have Ohio State at number 1. We'll talk about that in a second. But it comes down to overall, like, potential and juice and how you feel about the roster. And right now, I think A&M is number 2 in college football for me for that reason. They got a coach fired and cost the school right around $50 million to get that done. You know how definitive of a win you have to have at another school's place at night to say, you know what, $50 million, we're good for it. Let's fit that bill. That's a Marcel Reed thing. That's a playmaker thing. That's a front 7 thing. And I think this team is still putting it together. There's a couple of games where you kind of raise an eyebrow at A&M and say, okay, why can't we score more against Auburn? Hey, why are we allowing 40-plus against Notre Dame? I understand all that, but I think the fact they found ways to win different games should be worth something. And just what I said about Ty Simpson, the same thing I'll say about Marcel Reed. If the chips are down, I have to bet on a quarterback. Marcel Reed is in that top 3 group that I'm betting on across college football. The way he can do things out of structure, the way that he seems to just not flinch when the moment gets big. A&M's got some big game traits to him. I got him number 2 in college football. Again, I trust their personnel on the perimeter a little bit more than I do Indiana's, and I like the offensive and defensive line as much, and I also just like the playmaking ability of Marcel Reed. So I got A&M ahead of Indiana based on the parts, and I have Ohio State at number 1 for the exact same reason. Not the best resume in college football, and that's fine. That's fine. The resume will play itself out. We'll get there. But I think they have the best combination of highest floor and most potential. Like, I don't think Ohio State is going to have a fall off the face of the map kind of game. I don't think we'll see the Julian Sand gutterball game. I don't think we'll see a game where the Ohio State defense gets gashed for 30-plus points. Like, I don't see that happening. And so if we're living in that world, that means Ohio State is going to have a puncher's chance in the fourth quarter for their elite personnel to go take a game. Like we talked about the parts, I think that if you're drafting position groups among this top 3 of Indiana, A&M, and Ohio State, you're probably taking Ohio State's playmakers number 1 with Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. You're probably taking Julian Sand. I don't know. I'd probably take him number 2 personally with how efficient he's been. That's not a slight on Fernando Mendoza or Marcel Reed. It's just kind of how I feel about the guy. And you're looking at the way they've built the line of scrimmage. They're in great spots there. They're probably number 2 in that category as well. Like, I don't think Ohio State, to put a finer point on this, I don't think you take them 3rd out of those top 3 teams at any category. For my money, at least. Defense, definitely not. Defense probably number 1 amongst all those 3. So Ohio State, the resume is a little bit more to be desired, but they're trending upward. They are able to win games in multiple ways, much like A&M. They're a spot where they can beat you in a shootout game if you're able to score that many points on them and make it a shootout, and I don't think they're going to beat themselves. So there's a lot there with Ohio State, but I think the floor plus potential is why I have them number 1. The committee won't, and that's fine, but the committee is wrong, and we apologize for the committee's actions. So to recap it for you here, G5 Raptors Memphis. Georgia Tech at 11, Texas Tech at 10, so a pair of Techs there at 11 and 10. BYU at 9, Notre Dame at 8, a little religious theme there at the top of the top 10. Oregon at 7, Ole Miss at 6, Georgia at 5, Bama at 4, Indiana at 3, A&M at 2, and the Ohio State Buckeyes at number 1 in college football for our Nothing But Ball rankings. As always, comment section, Instagram, Twitter, at JD PicKell. Let me know your thoughts on these rankings. For Cato on the ones and twos, for myself, JD PicKell, make sure you're subscribed. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. We'll keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time.